Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. We cover everything Major League from spring training to the World Series. We've got your favorite club covered from New York to Boston to LA. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast.
It is time to talk some more baseball. Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Baseball Podcast here on the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Collin Manley. It's currently August 15th as of this recording. In the early afternoon, we're getting close to some baseball games starting. Not anything just yet, but hey, getting excited that we're going to have some coming our way. And we are about at that 20 range. Yeah, we're going to have a lot of teams getting to the point where they're hitting 20 games on the season. And believe it or not, we were slightly on the verge, and I say slightly, of having all of our MLB teams back and playing this weekend. Only for a turn of events to change things for us. Man, 2020 baseball, it's starting to feel normal, and I don't like how normal it's starting to feel, but we got to get everyone back, all 30 teams. We need to see them. We have a lot of great stuff for you today on the pod. We're going to talk about your news and noise around the league, get you up to date on a lot of injury news. And I say a lot of injury news because a ton of injuries have been coming in and even some big-time high-profile names. So we're going to get you some information on that. We're going to talk about some new COVID news because we did have a big story come in with this, with another positive test in Major League Baseball that's going to change things for a little bit. We're going to give you some updates on those Indian pitchers because Cleveland Indians, they have a lot going on there. It's a crazy story. We'll talk about those St. Louis Cardinals who are back. We're also going to talk about some other teams that maybe it's just time to show them some love. We didn't think they were going to be great, outstanding teams, but they might be proving us wrong. And lastly, we're going to talk about some potential other sports stars that we could maybe see in the MLB. Some guys that we thought, hey, they could cut it in the league. We had a great comment about that, so we wanted to take a time to dive into it. But we're going to start off with some news and noise around the league, keeping you up to date on all big information across 30 teams in the MLB. And we got a big one here right away that really just breaks my heart because he was one of my favorites to watch last year. Steven Strasburg for the Washington Nationals, who had been dealing with a nerve issue in his right hand, had exited his second start of the season against the Baltimore Orioles on Friday. He was just 2/3 of an inning into the game when the reigning World Series MVP had to be pulled from the start. He only made one other start this year, also against Baltimore, where he gave up 5 runs over 4 1/3 innings. Really has not been looking that sharp up to his normal stuff. Well, news had literally just come down that he was being placed on the IL as I started recording, and just tough news for the Nationals as they're missing Max Scherzer from their rotation as well. So you are really hoping that the pitching can come back for Washington because that's their strength. They just got Juan Soto, a big bat, go in their lineup again, and he's been looking tough, but got to get that starting pitching going for the Nationals. Starlin Castro was also placed on the 10-day IL after he broke his right wrist while diving to make a play in the 6th inning of the Nationals' 6-2 loss to the Orioles in a game that finished Friday afternoon. It had been suspended from last Sunday, and they had finished that one off. There's no real timeline on his return at this point. Like I said, he's placed on the 10-day IL, but it could definitely go longer than that. Castro had entered play Friday, hitting .283 for the season, 3 doubles, triple, and 2 home runs. So he had been an all-right player for the Nationals so far this season. So 2 big hits to their roster, at least for an extended period of time, it looks like. Aaron Judge, well, the Yankees have announced that Judge, who missed Wednesday's game with what was described as lower body tightness, well, he was placed on the 10-day IL due to a mild calf strain. Manager Aaron Boone had said that the team hopes his stint on the IL will not be longer than the minimum period of 10 days. They're hoping that he'll be good to go right after that, and that's a big bat on a big offense that I'm sure the Yankees would love to have come back sooner than later for sure. Madison Bumgarner, we had talked about him before. He was placed on the 10-day IL earlier in the week with a mid-back strain. Well, some positive news for the Diamondbacks as he threw a 38-pitch bullpen session on Thursday, set to be reevaluated before the next steps, are determined in his recovery process. They're taking it slow with him and might be okay because the Diamondbacks have been turning it around a little bit themselves. Don't want to rush Bumgarner back if he's not ready to be healthy. And the left-hander was placed on the IL with the expectation he was going to miss a couple of games. So definitely no surprise if they're going to take it slow with him and hopefully get him back at full strength to help in the tough NL West division. Staying in that NL West, Kirby Yates for the Padres. He exited a loss to the Diamondbacks in the 8th inning on Friday night due to some elbow discomfort. Not something you ever want to hear when it comes to a pitcher. Scheduled to go through with an MRI along with some other testing. A lot of people are thinking that the IL is a real possibility. Now, the closer for San Diego hadn't pitched since August 7th due to some back soreness, but he felt better heading into Friday. Well, that brief outing was only 7 pitches, so we'll see what happens. Manager Jay Stingler said, hopefully here over the next couple of days we'll have some more information. They think for sure they're going to be going on without him going forward, but they got a couple arms in the back of that bullpen. Drew Pomeranz, I can think for sure, who's been looking solid for the Padres and might be able to pick up some of the slack when it comes to Kirby Yates being gone. But you never want to see a late reliever go, especially in this shortened season when every game is going to be important. Looking at the New York Mets, well, they scratched Jacob deGrom from his scheduled start on Friday in Philadelphia due to some neck tightness. No structural damage has been reported as of now, but we'll see what happens going forward. Big news because, well, when it comes to the New York Mets, starting pitching is just tough to come by, especially with seeing Marcus Stroman just opting out for the season. They are just trying to get anybody out there to stay healthy when it comes to their starting rotation. And the news of deGrom's injury came a day after Jeff McNeil was carted off the field with a bone contusion in his left knee. He had suffered this when he slammed against the left field fence to make a run-saving catch in the first inning of Thursday's game against the Nationals, that early game in the afternoon. It was a great catch. You could just tell right away, though, that there was some discomfort going on, some struggling. He wasn't looking himself, and he could say right away he knew something was off. McNeil had said that he'd woke up a little bit sore, going to go through it as much as he can today, which would have been Saturday, and see where he is at. He knew as soon as he hit the wall that he said his knee kind of went numb and it felt weird that there were some problems going on. So hopefully a quick return for Jeff McNeil. Some news for the Atlanta Braves as Ronald Acuna Jr. remains on track for a Monday return. As of right now, the team is hoping that he will be back Monday after he was sidelined with some left wrist inflammation. He's been out a few games. He will be out of the weekend 3-game series with the Marlins. But it's a hot bat that the Braves are really trying to get back. He was starting to turn his season around. The Marlins, or not the Marlins, but the Braves are going to need a little help to catch the Marlins in the NL East. I didn't think I'd ever be saying that this season, but kind of been the way it's going. Ozzie Albies, who hasn't played since August 4th because of wrist contusion, he began swinging a bat Friday, which is good news. Expected to miss at least another week, though, going forward. For the Chicago Cubs, Chris Bryant was out of the lineup again Friday after being scratched Thursday due to some left wrist soreness as well. Bryant rolled his wrist and tweaked his left ring finger on a dive attempt in left field during the 5th inning of a game Wednesday. He initially remained in the game, ended up hitting a 2-out home run in the top of the 6th, but then he was replaced defensively by Alberto Mora Jr. in the 8th inning. And like we said, we haven't seen him on the field since, hoping that day-to-day right now and things are going to heal up and he'll be back in the lineup soon. Tyler Chatwood was scheduled to start Friday against the Brewers as well, but he was scratched a couple hours before the first pitch with some mid-back tightness. He is day-to-day going forward, and he will be reevaluated before his potential next start. The Oakland A's scratched Frankie Montes from Friday's start due to upper back tightness. In 4 starts this season, he's gone 2-1 with a 1.57 ERA and a 1 WHIP, 22 strikeouts over 23 innings. Big starter, big part of why the Oakland A's have been off to such a hot start in the AL West, hoping to get him back as soon as possible as well. For the LA Angels and Andrelton Simmons, well, sprained left ankle's been holding him out. He is still not going to be back during this weekend's Freeway Series against the Dodgers. Straight information from Joe Madden, as he said Friday, Simmons is still feeling pain when trying to make sharp cuts while running. He had sustained the injury with his ankle when he hit the back of first base trying to beat out an infield single on July 27th, so he's been out for quite some time. Madden had said he's still a little bit sore. That's why he's not available yet. We were hoping that it would be not as sore right now, but that's just the word, sore. We just have to deal with that. Just pushed it back a little bit further. I don't think he'll be ready this weekend, so we'll see how it works into next week. So, hoping to see him come back sooner, but this weekend still is not going to be in play for Simmons. Also, for the Angels, Cam Bedrosian, he had a right abductor strain. He has begun a throwing program and played catch before Friday's game against the Dodgers. No official return timetable for this reliever, but he's making progress after being put on the 10-day IL on August 3rd. For the Tampa Bay Rays, Charlie Morton, who was placed on the 10-day IL list because of shoulder inflammation, he played catch on Friday afternoon. No problems is the word coming out of Tampa Bay. Throwing up to 150 feet they had measured out, according to the manager, Kevin Cash. So that'd be big news to get a starter coming back for Tampa Bay, especially considering the fact that it looks like Tampa Bay is turning their season around a little bit and playing some strong baseball as of recent. Some other Rays injury news, Yanni Chirinos, he's expected to come off of the 10-day IL list Sunday. So he's missed more than a week because of right triceps inflammation, but a return is looking very, very, very likely in the near future. Will Smith for the LA Dodgers was involved in a whiplash collision, was being called, at the plate with Padres Fernando Tatis Jr. on August 3rd. And though Smith started another 5 games behind the plate, after that his neck has locked up again on Wednesday. So the IL is becoming more of a possibility after Friday's update. That's what Dave Roberts was telling. They were hoping not to send him there, but they're thinking it's going to be happening potentially since his little lockup on Wednesday. Dave Roberts had said it was just sort of a mild improvement. He's still really stiff, not pain, but really the stiffness moving his head side to side. And when you're someone working behind the plate, that's not something you want to be dealing with, as your head needs to be on a swivel pretty much. So going to have to see how that one goes moving forward. For the Philadelphia Phillies, Spencer Howard exited his second major league start in the 4th inning on Friday against the Mets at Citizen Park due to what was called a blister on his right middle finger. No announcement has really been made about him going forward, so we're looking at it kind of a day-to-day situation. A 24-year-old, he was ranked as the number 36 prospect in baseball by MLB Pipeline. And he gave up 4 runs, 3 of them earned on 7 hits, walking 2 and striking out 2 over 3 1/3 innings Friday night. In his first career start against the Braves last Sunday, Howard had allowed 4 runs over 4 2/3 innings, so off to maybe not his best possible start, but we're going to see when we have him next on the mound dealing with that blister on his finger. For the San Francisco Giants, a lot of news as Austin Slater was scratched before Wednesday's game against the Astros. He was not in the lineup for Friday's series opener against the A's due to a flexor strain in his right elbow, currently day-to-day right now. Drew Smyly, because of a left index finger sprain, he's resumed throwing off of flat ground, and Jeff Samardzija, because of some right shoulder inflammation, has not yet begun throwing. They both will be re-examined this weekend, hoping to be coming back sometime soon. And then Reyes Moranta, because of right shoulder surgery, has been throwing some bullpen sessions. He's just coming back for the Giants at their alternate site in Sacramento. The club is remaining hopeful that he can return before the end of the regular season. Would be a good get for the San Francisco squad to have back. The Toronto Blue Jays, Can I call them Toronto Blue Jays? Should I start calling them the Buffalo Blue Jays maybe? I don't know. Ken Giles, because of a right forearm strain, he underwent an MRI as part of his reevaluation on Wednesday, and all signs are positive right now for the closer, which is good. They don't have a timeline yet for his return, but it is good news from the squad, especially considering we do have a trade deadline that's going to be approaching at a certain point here. Will Ken Giles be healthy enough to show that he is ready to play? Maybe they'll move him. Definitely someone who could get return, as the values for late inning relievers is going to be through the roof. For the Texas Rangers, Robinson Chirinos, he began the season with a sprained right ankle but tried to play through it, was placed on the 10-day IL Friday with that sprained left ankle. He'd already missed 2 games due to the ankle earlier in the season, and his placement was kind of expected. He was 4 for 31 at the plate so far this season. You can see things were really bothering him. Manager Chris Woodward had said they were concerned about him since the beginning of the year. They knew he wasn't healthy. They want to take the time to have him heal up, and so this is kind of a move that they're hoping helps get him back up to speed. And Edison Volquez for the Rangers, he was placed on the 45-day IL list on Thursday with a right oblique strain. He had sustained the injury when he had a relief appearance against the Mariners on Tuesday. Since it's going on the 45-day IL, you can already say that his season's going to be done. Since having Tommy John surgery all the way back in 2017, Volquez has been limited to just 18 appearances since then. So definitely been battling a lot of injuries. For the Cincinnati Reds, Mike Moustakas, he was scheduled to be on the field for Thursday's batting practice, eligible to be activated from the 10-day IL on Sunday. Still waiting to see when Mike Moustakas is going to come back to help out that Reds offense. Sean Doolittle, also for the Nationals, he was placed on the 10-day IL. He had been struggling this season, having a 15 ERA through 3 innings. Positive for the Nats bullpen, though, as Will Harris is going to be coming back from the IL after missing some times with a strained right groin. So that's going to be it here for news and noise on the league, getting you caught up on all of those injury news. And like I said, just a lot of injuries going on in Major League Baseball. A lot of big names. Teams trying to get healthy as we're getting to be about that third of the way through the season. See if some teams can get some good luck and health to be on their side. We're going to be talking about a lot of other things here on the podcast coming forward. We're going to talk about a new positive test in coronavirus that's going to delay some more games for teams. We're going to talk about our Indians pitchers along with the Cardinals' return, what it's going to look like for them after a quick commercial break here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
This is the GSMC Baseball Podcast here on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Collin Manley. We just got done talking about news and noise around the league, keeping you up to date on all those big league teams with a lot of injury information. That injuries, man, they have been kicking some teams' butts. But hopefully with this shortened season, things are going to turn around at some point here. I mean, you just knew that we were going to have some problems when it came to such a short startup to get things rolling again. But, you know, with all the money that was to be made, the MLB, they really needed to push things going out right away. But we're going to turn our attention to talking about some new coronavirus news, kind of a big thing that ended up altering this weekend, at least for a couple of teams. We have learned that a member of the Cincinnati Reds, a player indeed, has tested positive for COVID-19. Because of this, MLB has postponed the final two games of the Cincinnati series versus the Pittsburgh Pirates for Saturday and for Sunday. We have not been told who the actual player is at this time. That information has not been released. For that information to be released, the player has to confirm that it's okay. So we might learn further down the line, but right now we don't know. Both teams have off days on Monday for possible makeup games if needed, but no dates have been announced for when these games will be completed. Since they both play in the NL Central, pretty safe bet that there's going to be some sort of doubleheader later on in the season to fix that. The postponements made by MLB were announced because they want to allow for some further testing and to complete any type of contact tracing. So they're trying to really slow this thing down immediately because it was only one positive test. They are really hoping that things are going to be stopped quickly and we're going to have a nice turnaround here and not have a major outbreak like we saw with the St. Louis Cardinals, Miami Marlins, and other teams. So it's definitely going to be something we're going to be looking at a little bit more going forward. The Reds were scheduled. Unfortunately, we lose the opportunity to see Trevor Bauer pitch another game, but hopefully, everything comes back all right. It's something you're just, again, we've talked about many times, you're going to have to get used to. These are going to pop up sparingly throughout the year. Now, we hope that the massive outbreaks are done, but you're going to see a game or two for some of these teams get postponed just because this virus is really unpredictable. We don't know where it's going to go. There's just a lot of uncertainty around it. So, as we said right now, at least for the time being, Reds, Pirates, postponed for this weekend. My guess, since they both have off days on Monday, we won't hear about any future Reds series until Monday, unless if we have just a massive overhaul of positive tests coming in. So definitely something to be monitoring because since the Reds are going to have this cancellation, it comes to be a big time because, well, the Cardinals were set to return. Only 5 games being played for the St. Louis Cardinals so far this season. They hit the road on Friday, drove all the way to Chicago where they were going to resume their season on Saturday versus the Chicago White Sox after a 16-day layoff from games due to the coronavirus outbreak within their team. So there was so much going on here, so many missed games, so many postponements, but it's finally looking like we're going to get some Cardinals baseball to happen again. They had 18 individuals in the organization over that 2-week stretch that had tested positive. So gonna maybe be some new players that you have not seen on the Cardinals roster as well. The roster moves could have been made. Just happy to get some games going again, I imagine. But with this coming, they have the doubleheader with the White Sox, and then a lot of other schedule changes. So we have those in front of us. So the 3-game series that originally was scheduled for the past weekend between the Cardinals and Cubs at Busch Stadium, well, it is rescheduled as part as 3 doubleheaders at Wrigley Field. So Monday starting at 4:15 p.m., Wednesday starting at 1:20 p.m., and September 5th starting at 4:15. The Cardinals will be the home team for the second game of each of the doubleheaders. Kind of a big loss for the Cardinals is you're playing all these games, even though you're considered the home team at Wrigley. A 3-game series that was originally scheduled for this week with the Pirates at Busch Stadium will be rescheduled as part of 2 doubleheaders. At Busch Stadium starting at 2:15 p.m. on August 27th, and also September 18th at PNC Park starting at 3:05. Cardinals will be the home team for both games on August 27th, which originally had been a mutual day off for both teams. So there are very few off days for a lot of these schedules, so they were luckily able to fit these on here, and then they'll be the home team for the second game on September 18th. A 2-game series that was against the Twins in September is now scheduled to be played as a doubleheader on September 8th, beginning at 2:15 p.m., done to create an additional off day for the Cardinals in September. So they're moving a game that hasn't been played yet to make a doubleheader so that they can get this in. The postponed doubleheader right now against the Tigers that was supposed to be played Thursday, that will be rescheduled later moving forward. Now, with all of this movement going on, we're going to see a great deal of games for St. Louis. And you just hope, cross your fingers, that no weather delays come into play, because we have some very limited time to get these games in. So with this new schedule, this is from a story on MLB.com for the Cardinals written by Ann Rogers. With the new schedule, the Cardinals will play 21 games in August, including 4 doubleheaders. Here's the big one, though. 32 games in September with 7 doubleheaders. So as of Friday, the Cardinals will try to squeeze 53 games in the remaining 44 days of the regular season, with 2 off days in all of September. And that's just a loaded, heavy schedule. You almost feel for the Cardinals a little bit. It's tough, but MLB really has no option. They're going to try to get all of these games in for the Cardinals, because they don't want to come to a situation where maybe they're looking at, hey, they've only played this many games while everyone else has played 60. What are we going to do? They don't want to get to that situation. They want to get to where everyone has the same amount of games played, and we'll see if they get there. I'm very interested to follow them moving forward. I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on the Cardinals and see what happens. And you just wonder, how are they going to be? Now, the Marlins came out of their long break just hot. They started off well, winning a lot of games, and they looked like a solid team that was prepared, which is incredible considering the fact of how many moves they made on their roster to just put a team together. Are we going to see the Cardinals in the same way? Well rested, ready to go, but at the same time haven't been playing, full level, high level octane baseball so far. So we'll have to see where this goes. Every doubleheader, remember, is going to be 7 innings long, and the teams are going to be permitted a 29th player on the roster. So for the doubleheader on Saturday, they will designate lefty Ricardo Sanchez as their 29th player. As of right now, he's going to join a host of players joining the team from the alternate site from Springfield, Missouri. I imagine we're going to see some names rotating in this story from Ann Rogers. She talked about their top prospect Dylan Carlson, first baseman John Nagowski, right-hander Seth Elledge, and lefty Rob Kaminsky being some names of players that we could see rotating around, potentially playing. It's going to be the first time the team has got together since August 6th and 17 days since they played a game, which their last game was a 3-0 loss to the Twins all the way back on July 29th. They have been doing some individualized workouts. They've been allowed at Busch Stadium the past few days for the players to try to get ready for this return. But it's going to be the first time that a lot of these players have been on the field together with coaches, trainers, all of that. So it's going to be interesting to see. I'm hoping to tune in on this game and see how this Cardinals roster looks, because it's going to be very, very interesting going forward. And, maybe they'll surprise us. Maybe we'll be shocked with how fresh they look coming out of this. And I want to take a second to just talk about Dylan Carlson being their top prospect. He also had been mentioned to be in the lineup for the first game against the White Sox. Gonna be someone to watch. He'll play rather than sit on the bench, and he has the ability to be an exciting player. All right, so I'm going to be watching for Carlson. Swings a good stick. Little excitement in this return coming back with the Cardinals. The last thing I want to talk about in this segment has to also be about the Cleveland Indians pitchers and the decision that Cleveland decided to make. So the Cleveland Indians decided to activate pitchers Zach Plesac and Mike Clevenger from the restricted list Friday. And with this decision, they optioned them both off to the team's alternate training site. They are away from the team. The pitchers had been placed on the restricted list Tuesday for violating MLB protocols related to the coronavirus pandemic. They will have to be at the alternate site for at least 10 days. That is the rules following breaking protocol or being moved to the training site. They have to be there for 10 days. It was said that both players drove to Detroit, bringing all of their stuff, thinking that they were going to play, and they met with teammates on Friday ahead of their 3-game series. Sounded like airing out some grievances, talking a little bit within the team, but at the end of that meeting, manager Terry Francona and the GM Mike Chernoff, they decided to send them off to the alternate site instead of rejoining the team. Sounds like it ended up being a big decision. A lot of talk was reported that it was said it was just something that the team thought was best for them, so that they were going to be the best team they could possibly be going into this series with Detroit, which actually is an important series right now, considering the fact that Detroit has been playing all well. Plesac didn't really help himself out when he posted a video to Instagram on Thursday trying to quote-unquote get the truth out, saying that they were being portrayed as bad teammates and bad people and all of this. And it really feels like a lot of the teammates for Cleveland and the higher-ups are really disappointed about the things that were being said in the video. They didn't feel like they were understanding the point of why teammates and everyone were so upset with them. Terry Francona had even said that if he had a do-over, he may have done things a bit differently. It sounds like both players have really owned up to what they were doing was wrong, but I still do wonder a little bit if they understand the magnitude of what they're doing here. And again, if you're someone that thinks that what they did was okay because you want to go out and do things too, that's your decision. That's your decision in life. But the greater picture here, the greater whole grand picture is not taking the risk to not expose teammates and others to this so that we don't have all these delays happening. I mean, just look what just happened with the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, it's an interesting situation because I see both sides in the sense of what they find as priorities, but when so much money is on the line, you don't have really any extra days to make this happen. It's something that still just makes me sit back and kind of shake my head because I just don't understand what could have possibly been going through those two heads as they decided to go out and about in Chicago during that series. But we'll see what happens with the team going forward. I've seen other things with teammates with the Indians saying, well, they're going to have to earn back some trust, and rightfully so. It's a tough situation that they got into. And I did end up finding a tweet that I found very interesting. And again, it's a very interesting tweet, but not a realistic tweet, as it came from Matt Bretz. And he started off with even saying it would never happen, but if the Indians optioned Clevenger to AAA for 20 days, they would gain an extra year of control and they push his free agency back a season. Again, they don't think it would ever happen because he's obviously been up on the major league roster for quite some time, been a good pitcher for them, but wouldn't that be quite the punishment when it comes to the decision that was made by these two Indians pitchers? It's a head scratcher. It really is with those three, but it seems like Cleveland organization has a good control on things right now, which is nice to see. And we'll see if any other issues come from this moving forward, but it will most likely probably be under wraps until the two return back to the team after their 10 days at the alternate site. So that's going to be it here for the second segment here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, talking about those coronavirus news and teams returning to action and some players being kind of sent away. we're going to be coming back to talk about a few teams that potentially deserve a little love now. Are we giving them the attention that they deserve so far this season? Are we really giving them the respect? So I want to look at a few teams and talk about some things going on with them and say, hey, do we really need to pay attention to these teams a little bit more here after a break on the GSMC Baseball Podcast?
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast here on the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Collin Manley. We just got done talking about the Cincinnati Reds and Pittsburgh Pirates postponement due to a positive coronavirus test with one player on the Cincinnati Reds. That's the information we have now. We talked about our Indians pitchers and the whole story that was going on there. The team decision was to move them onto their alternate site, and then talking about the St. Louis Cardinals' return finally to baseball. We've been waiting for them since July, and it's going to actually be happening. But now we got to talk about a few teams that maybe have not been getting the love and respect that we need to give them. But also I want to look at some of the numbers and discuss them, because maybe their records are a little untruthful at the moment, but hey, they're winning games, and what it comes down to at times is, are they winning games? And we're going to inch towards that 20-game mark here in 2020, so that means we're a third of the way through the season, and it's just time to give out some love to these teams that we didn't expect to be holding on at this point, to be being playoff hopefuls. I mean, we expected some teams to just be flat-out sellers at the trade deadline. We were expecting this to come, but we have some that are holding on and some that are even thriving at the moment. And I know for me, there are just quite a few surprises in this young season. And the fact that it is much shorter, it might be playing a bigger role because of this. But it is time to look at some of these teams and talk about what the stats are truly showing. And so the first one that I need to talk about is this Baltimore Orioles team, who is sitting at 11-8 right now, tied for, well, percentage-wise, they're up above Tampa Bay, but they're also 2 games back behind the Yankees, along with Tampa Bay in the AL East. And now, the thing about this team, when you look at it, is you wonder if it's going to hold on because of the fact that they have only outscored their opponents this season by a total of 4 runs. So through 19 games, 100 runs scored, 96 given up. But there's a lot to be said about their offense so far this season. Definitely something that was not expected going forward. Baltimore right now is 4th in the majors in batting average at .261 for a team. Pretty solid right there. 7th in runs scored. 8th in hits. 9th in home runs. So they are within top 10 statistics in a lot of categories when it comes to just showing off that their offense is doing great. And they just have some players that are doing some amazing things for them. Starting off with Alberto at second base. I mean, Hanser Alberto, 27 years old, batting .337 on the season, is being a great start for this team, doing some awesome offensive damage. But you also have, Renato Nunez at first base taking over for Chris Davis, who has just been slumping for recent years. Wouldn't that be something even more if they got Chris Davis going in the DH position? But that's just wishful thinking on my end. And then also, Pedro Severino at catcher, batting .308, 4 home runs on the season, 13 RBIs. Rio Ruiz batting .255, but he's got 5 home runs. They just got a lot of guys throughout their lineup. It's looking to be a more potent offensive lineup than I think a lot of people really expected coming into the season, and they're just getting enough when it comes to their starting pitching. Now, if this area picked up, we're going to be talking about a scarier team in Baltimore. And that's obviously assuming if their hitting continues on, because they have Alex Cobb, who's 1-1 in the year with a 2.75 ERA. He's been all right for them. 17 strikeouts in 19 innings work. He's been reliable as a starter. They have, Cole Sulser at closer doing all right with 4 saves. Michael Givens was a guy that I was interested in as a trade piece. He might be held on to by this Baltimore team just because he is a strong piece out of the bullpen, as he still has a 0 ERA over 7 innings pitched. 3 holds on the season as well. He's helping the team maintain some leads. So I worry just because of the division that they're in. The Yankees are tough. The Rays are tough, because you think and hope that the pitching is going to come around for the Rays. But this Baltimore team is just steadily staying there right now. And a strong part because of their offense. And right now in baseball, if you have a good offense, you're onto something. So it might be time to really look at this Baltimore team and give them a little respect, because 11-8 right now. Can they make a run at this postseason with 16 teams making it in? I think it's very doable. It's very, very doable, potentially. Staying in that American League, we got to talk about this Detroit Tigers team, because it just feels like Detroit has been towards the bottom for some time. We were wondering if they were going to get out. Well, they're 9-8 right now. They've lost 3 in a row to be 9-8. Interesting enough that they have a winning record. Scary thing is they're being outscored this season by opponents, along with they've had some injury problems, as players such as like CJ Cron had ended up just going to the IL. They have some guys also that have been really surprising, like a Jacoby Jones having a good start to the season for them. The 28-year-old, do we think it's going to continue because he's kind of hitting the end of his prime, or he's being there? Maybe not, but I mean, they're getting some solid contributions from other guys as well, as they're also tied for 9th in home runs on the season. So they've been using the long ball to their advantage as a team. But when it comes to batting average, they're 300 at best, lingering below. They don't have a lot of great guys hitting for high averages, as at least when it comes to consistent play. Even though he's not a full-time starter at all times, he's only played in 12 of their games so far, but he's been around. Austin Ramin, he's batting .302 with 2 home runs, being a big part of it. We talked about Jacoby Jones. He's batting .300 on the season. That's kind of their top guys. Their offense is a little bit below their pitching. They might be overperforming a little bit from what the statistics show, but you got to give them credit, as they are fighting in an American League Central that we thought was going to be tough just because of the fact that they have some great teams. I mean, we knew the Twins were going to be tough coming in. We thought that the Indians, who have crept up to 11-9 on the season right now, they were going to be a tough team, but with everything going on with them right now with their pitchers, maybe they'll fall off a little bit. We have a Chicago White Sox team that's very similar in the sense of record and how they're not outscoring, but the talent just looks a little bit better on that White Sox team. And, you got to give credit to a Kansas City Royals team that they're not gone yet either. They're sitting at 8-11. They're not buried in this season. It's just hard because you don't think 5 teams in one division can stay competitive. It seems unlikely. I mean, the Royals, they're 10th this year in hits in the season. Awesome, but can it continue? We talked about that. Tigers teams outscored by 7 runs. White Sox outscored by 1 run. Kansas City outscored by 5. And they're 3 games under 500, while the Tigers are above 500. So, little bit of fluky there, potentially. You got some players that are fun to watch. I knew I was watching this team because I just wanted to see what Miguel Cabrera was going to do for some career numbers. But they're fighting, they're competing. They're a team that I would think is going to fall off, but you got to give them the respect what they have right now. I mean, they're doing some great things in Detroit and just pulling off games. And they have some guys that could probably turn things around a little bit. Like I look at Matthew Boyd on the mound. He has struggled. Well, he had a strong start to last season. Can he figure things out a little bit going? We'll have to wait and see. And also have a guy in Joe Jimenez who had a solid start to the year out of the bullpen with 5 saves. He's been hit around a little bit since. So we'll see. Where's the consistency going to come with this team? It's going to be interesting to watch. One more American League team that we might need to be paying attention to a little bit would have to be the Texas Rangers. We talked before about how their pitching was going to be strong coming into the season. At least we thought some starting pitching with Lance Lynn, Mike Minor, Corey Kluber. Well, we don't have Kluber. Mike Minor has been getting hit around. Lance Lynn has been outstanding. With all that going on, they're sitting at 9-9 and second in the AL West. Now, being realistic, they're being outscored by a big total as well. They've won their last 3 games to get to 9-9. Good wins for them. As you know, they took 2 wins over the Mariners and 1 over the Rockies. Overall, they're 6-4 in their last 10, which is good. They're above, barely, the Houston Astros. Hard to say if that's going to be consistent or not, because the Houston Astros offense has been more proven this season, outscoring opponents by 16 runs compared to being outscored by 13 for the Rangers. We're going to have to see offensively if the Rangers can get going. We talked about it. Their pitching's been all right. That was going to be their strength, and a couple starters have been there. They've given up 78 runs, which is not bad. Not bad across the MLB spectrum, but only scoring 65 runs so far this season. The only teams that are below that so far, 65 runs, is the Cardinals because they played 5 games. That's it. They are the lowest scoring offense in baseball if we're going to throw out the Cardinals, and we have to. I mean, the Toronto Blue Jays are at 67, close by, but they're also behind in games. So can we get some offense going? And I know that they recently had a few guys just coming back to the team because they've been dealing with some injuries, but they also have some staples in their offense who haven't been great. So like Elvis Andrus, who's batting 162 on the year, not great. But they have some positives as well as Nick Solich at second base. He's batting .311, having an all right season for him. Todd Frazier batting .300. That's a good surprise for him. Joey Gallo is hitting his 4 home runs, but batting .190 is not going to cut it for him. And we talked about Shin-Soo Choo being a potential trade piece. Well, batting .216, he's turning things around after a really slow start. It's just this offense is underwhelming. Underwhelming when it comes to the Texas Rangers. They rely on their pitching big time, and we haven't even seen their best pitching. That's the thing that gets me going about this team. We haven't seen their best. Lance Lynn's great. Mike Minor has the ability to turn it around a little bit. We could probably see some better from Jordan Lyles, another starter for him who has 3 games started. Kyle Gibson, in his 3 starts, has a 4.11 ERA. Not bad for behind, back of the rotation guy. They just said Edison Velquez to the IL, but he's been battling injuries a lot. Can their pitching continue to be strong? That's the question for this Rangers team moving forward. And if it can be, we might have something here. We might have a team that's going into this, and if there's anything we've learned from postseason baseball, if you have pitching, you have a chance. That's the scary thing. Going in with some solid starters. That's why we talk about a team like the Tampa Bay Rays. If their starters are right, you don't want to see them in that 3-round or 3-game playoff. You don't want to see them. Same could be said about this Rangers team. If they come in hot and Mike Minor's playing better and you got to see Lance Lynn, Mike Minor back to back, you don't want to deal with that. So interesting that they're lingering around with such a bad offense. We'll see if that offense could get going a little bit, and maybe they're a team that wants to try to buy some hitters and get things going. We don't know. Our next team that just deserves the flat-out love, and I'm so willing to give it to them, is this Miami Marlins team. They're fun. I mean, I don't know a better way to describe it. They're 7-3 in their last 10, returning to playing baseball again. Obviously, their run differentials are a lot lower because of less games, 13 games played for them compared to a lot of other being 20. But they're outscoring people by 12 runs at this point in the season. They're getting some great play from quite a few guys, and they made some discount bargain moves in the offseason, not to mention to go along with all their desperation moves to get a team together, but they're getting play from their guys. They're getting some life. Shout out to Jesus Aguilar, who was an all-star a couple seasons ago, gets traded to the Tampa Bay Rays as kind of a trade deadline move. Free agent this year, gets picked up on a cheap deal with the Marlins. He's batting .306 with 4 home runs and 15 RBIs. He's been great for them. Brian Anderson was their big slugger coming into the season, probably positive, .260, 4 home runs, 14 RBIs. He's helping, getting runs going around. It just feels like someone each night is taking turn bringing some runs. Jonathan Villar is on that team betting .245. They have John Birdie betting .233. They just are stringing it together, and it's going for them. And I'm rooting for them because the NL East is almost there for the taking, as the Braves have had some injury problems. The Mets, nobody really knows what's going on. Then the Nationals and Phillies, we're not getting consistent play from them, even though they have potential and talent. I want to see this Marlins team go. I mean, I think that would just be a fun storyline, especially considering they were our first team of the year to really have that coronavirus breakout, and they came back from it just strong. So hoping to see that, and you got to give a little respect to, as they have had some nice pitching from Pablo Lopez has been a good starter for them. They've got a mix of guys. I mean, Stephen Tarpley has been coming out of their bullpen quite a bit. He's been in 8 games already. Jordan Yamamoto, he's been getting some starts as well, but he's been getting hit up a little bit. They were excited about him in the season. Brandon Kinsler coming back to a little bit of the solid late reliever that he was. It's just, they got a lot going on, and it's funny when you go to their stat sheet too and look at all their players from pitchers, because the list is so long because of what they had to do to make up the roster. It's actually a fun look if you ever had the chance to dive into that. And then our last team that we got to talk about that deserves some love, just because I didn't expect them here in that National League West, it's that Colorado Rockies team. Now, we talked about that Dodgers gonna climb. That talent on that Dodgers team is so good, they're gonna most likely surpass them. But that doesn't mean that the Rockies can't be a playoff team. At 12-7, they are first in the majors in batting average at .274, second in hits, fourth in runs. Yeah, and I know they get the luxury of playing in Denver. I know, but they're still looking pretty great, outscoring opponents by 21 runs. They actually lost their last 2, are on a little bit of a cold stretch right now. But they've been impressive, and they have some guys in the starting rotation that has potential to get things going. And I always feel bad for those pitchers because you are pitching in a tough situation as well. So you want to say, yeah, they get to hit in these great situations. Well, your pitcher's got to be there as well. German Marquez, he's been great at 2-2 with a 2.08 ERA. Kyle Freeland, he's 2-0 in his 4 starts, 2.45 ERA. They got a couple guys doing great stuff for them. Jario Diaz is an exciting closer out of that back end of that bullpen. He's had some strong moments so far this season as well. Hit around in a couple appearances, but overall has been looking tough for them. This Rockies team has the potential to as well make the playoffs, be a tough offensive out. And I mean, you just go across their batting lineup too. I mean, they got strong guys, and it's been that way for a while. We all know how solid Charlie Blackmon has been this season. Batting at 447 right now, and he's batting 447 in a slump. Trevor Story is still there doing well. Nolan Arenado, Daniel Murphy has been solid for them. They got offense there. And, Matt Kemp is still in his revival of his career doing some things. They're just a fun team and be a great offense to see in a postseason as well. So you hope that they continue to do well. So that's going to be our teams that deserve a little love for what they've done so far. That's 5 teams: the Orioles, Tigers, Rangers, Marlins, and Rockies. We'll see if they can keep going, keep the pace rolling. You hope they do. I love the competitive baseball. I've been watching. They've been getting my attention, and I wouldn't have said that I would have been excited about these 5 teams at the start of the season, but here I am now watching them play games. So that's going to be it for this segment. We're going to be coming back here in a little bit and talking about how would some other professional athletes be in baseball, at least some guys that I would like to see as well, here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network.
Want to know the latest in soccer? Then listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast. From MLS, the World Cup, and the Premier League, we've got you covered. The latest updates, the hottest matches, and news on the league's top players. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Soccer Podcast.
David Beckham scores the goal to take England all the way to the World Cup finals.
Listen now.
This is the GSMC Baseball Podcast. We just got done talking about some teams that deserved just a little bit of love. I mean, we have so many great teams in baseball this season. We're going to have a lot of teams make the postseason this year. Some that were probably unexpected since we opened it up to 16 teams. So we had to take the opportunity to show some teams some love that we probably didn't think we're going to get there to begin with. So had to take that moment, had to take that chance to dive into it. But the next thing we want to talk about is a little cross-sports potential. So we've just seen Mr. Patrick Mahomes dip his toes outside of football not too long ago. Don't worry, Chiefs fans. He isn't leaving the team, at least as of now. But Mahomes' arm talent would be something that we would consider very interesting to see on a baseball mound. Could you imagine him just going out there and changing arm angles all over the place in his pitching, just like he does on the football field? And so I got a comment about it on a past podcast, and it got me wanting to answer what other pro athletes would be fun to see in MLB. And I will be real and upfront right away. I got stuck on a lot of NFL guys. I really did. I thought about some NBA guys, but I'll be real. I do wonder, just because of flat out size, how much this would work. These guys really are huge compared to your average MLB player. And would it be fun to see someone of LeBron James' size and strength take some swings with a bat? Sure, of course. No doubt about it. But I struggled to come up with some really great guys from the NBA that I thought would make it. But I should give a shout out to my home state Milwaukee Bucks, Pat Connaughton, who not only was a great basketball player at Notre Dame, but also was a great pitcher for the Notre Dame baseball team. We also have some other crossover guys like, Jeff Samardzija. He was a great wide receiver at Notre Dame as well. And just NBA, it felt like it was hard to come up with those guys. But the NFL, there is just a wide array of guys. And it's easy to say right away, many NFL quarterbacks would be interesting to see just because flat out, we know the crazy arm talent. These guys have just cannons for arms. And, just writing down some of them, some of these guys had the opportunity to play baseball as well. Like, we know that Russell Wilson was a 4th-round draft pick of the Rockies in 2010 after playing football and baseball at NC State. And he even played 2 minor league seasons in Colorado's system, transferred to Wisconsin in 2011, had things keep going, left the Rockies to enter the NFL draft. Things worked out for him in Seattle, now being a Super Bowl champion for sure. But, he has stayed close to the diamond as he joins the Yankees at spring training. He joined them in 2019. So, he's been sticking around baseball doing some things as well. He just takes me for a guy that would be a solid infielder doing some great things, even if that wouldn't be his play. You just think he's just the leader of an infield. You get that feeling for him. Then Kyler Murray, his baseball talent was huge. He was the 9th overall pick in the 2018 draft by the Oakland A's. He was so talented on the football field to win a Heisman Trophy, and then he goes out and he's a top 10 pick. And he decided to opt for football as well. But I can just imagine this guy running around in center field. Just should be catching everything. This guy has just flat out speed, but then the arm strength to do incredible things. And hey, maybe even not too bad of towards the top of the order leadoff batter. A guy though that, I didn't find a big baseball history that I would wonder about just because I think he has a cannon of an arm. I would love to see Josh Allen throwing off a mound. That guy has the ability to throw a football 70-plus yards, it feels like. Now take that arm and start putting it towards the strength and ability to throw a baseball. And the guy is big as well. He's got to be 6'6", massive, massive dude. You have to think he has the ability to just have a cannon of an arm. And then, hey, how about the all-time Super Bowl guy, Tom Brady? He was an 18th round pick of the Montreal Expos. Yeah, that team not around no more, but he had the ability and the chance to go play some baseball. He was a power-hitting catcher, which is unbelievable to me. Batted left-handed. They said that he was pretty good, had arm strength, had everything you would want. They projected him as potentially a major league all-star if everything went right. He had it all. Obviously declined to go to the Expos and would later play quarterback at Michigan instead. And again, it seems like it worked out for him. And then, of course, Patrick Mahomes. He was a 37th round pick of the Detroit Tigers in 2014. Decided to go away from that and wanted to play quarterback at Texas Tech instead, not follow his father's footsteps to the MLB. But they'd even said he had the tools to be a baseball star. He really had it all. Mahomes had struck out 16 batters, they said, in a 7-inning no-hitter to defeat Michael Kopech in a high school baseball game. So he had the arm strength, the arm talent to do some great things. So there's just a lot of quarterbacks that you think for sure could have made things happen. But we also do have quite a few skilled players that would be fun to see in the NFL moving over to the MLB. And if there's one position that I would really be intrigued in, it'd be a lot of the wide receivers. Because I feel like their body types would fit the mold of some solid outfielders for sure. And I had 4 of them in mind that I would think would be fun because of their flat-out athletic ability, speed, and I just think most of these guys defensively would be incredibly solid. With the body control they have and what they would be able to do, it would be insane. Just incredible athlete off the gates. Odell Beckham would be, I also think, just an unbelievable outfielder. What we've seen him do on the football field athletically, being able to go up and get baseballs, I can just see this guy robbing home runs left and right. I mean, and he's got such good body control. He was a soccer player, I believe, a little bit too, and did well with that. I could just see him patrolling a center field and just catching everything as a Gold Glove. Another guy that I would just love to see, just because of the ground he could flat out cover in an outfield, is what could Tyreek Hill do? And not only just in defense on an outfield, but on the base pass. It would be amazing to see him fly around the bases. Him, and there's probably other speedsters we could consider in this, like Henry Ruggs, John Ross, those guys that just kill it at the combine every year for the NFL. Seeing these guys on the bases, turning routine hits into more than what they are, it would be fun to see. I mean, we have speed in the MLB, but some of these guys in the NFL are just on another level. DeAndre Hopkins, a guy I think very similar to Odell, with his body control, his length, ability to just go up and get a football. I imagine their tracking skills with baseball would be pretty darn good as well. Even though I know it's not exactly the same. I mean, it's definitely different. It would be interesting to see players like that. And I have one guy that I don't know for a fact if he would be an all-around tool player. But I just have the feel that, like, Julio Jones just makes me think that he would have been an all-around great baseball player. I could be 100% wrong on this, but with his body ability, size, and strength, I find it hard to think that he wouldn't be able to be quite a presence on the football field. I mean, 6'3", 220, or a baseball field, I should say. The guy just is a flat-out athletic freak and should have the tools that would translate that a little bit. And we actually have a lot of guys in the NFL that had the chance to go play a little bit of baseball. It was fun to actually dig into this a little bit because there's a lot of names. Bleacher Report had recently put out an article, it was in June 9th, so not too long ago in 2020, of some of the top current NFL players that were selected in the MLB draft. Golden Tate, wide receiver for the New York Giants, he was 42nd round in 2007 by the Diamondbacks, 50th round by the Giants in 2010. He was a great football player at Notre Dame, but before that, he was doing some great things in baseball as well. He played 2 seasons of baseball at Notre Dame, serving a key role as a sophomore in 2009. He hit .329 with 13 extra base hits, scoring 45 runs, stealing 13 bases. Had the ability to be a little speedster on the base paths, it looks like, as well. Jameis Winston, remember this when he was at Florida State. He was a 15th round pick by the Texas Rangers in 2012. He didn't bat well. He had 158 at-bats, just 209, but he wasn't there to bat. He was the guy on the mound. He made 41 pitching appearances, 1.94 ERA in 60 1/3 innings with 52 strikeouts and a .91 whip. He didn't play baseball in 2015 at Florida State, so he kind of went away from it. But he had 2 solid seasons there as a baseball player to go along with his Heisman campaign as a NFL quarterback. Shaq Thompson for the Carolina Panthers. This is a stretching name. I didn't know that he was such a good baseball player, and here's the thing that makes me even more dumbfounded, is I didn't know he was drafted by my Boston Red Sox. He was an 18th round pick in 2012. And I'm blown away by this. He tried out a little stint in a rookie ball team for Boston in 2012, and he learned pretty quickly that he's probably better off going with football. He went 0 for 39 with 37 strikeouts. Had 8 walks, 3 runs, and a stolen base. But sticking with linebacker ended up being the good choice, as he ended up just signing a massive contract extension to stay with the Panthers. But I guess formerly Boston Red Sox draft pick. They have Kyler Murray on there, Russell Wilson as well, and Tom Brady like we talked about, and Patrick Mahomes. But there's also other guys that were drafted into the MLB. Maybe not as big of football names, but Matt Castle was a guy in 2005, was a 7th-round pick for the Patriots, but in 2004 was drafted in the 36th round by the Oakland A's, was a starting first baseman in high school. Hey, he also reached the 1994 Little League World Series. Unfortunately, lost to Venezuela, but had a good baseball career. Former wide receiver Eric Decker was drafted twice in college as an outfielder, 39th round by Milwaukee in 2008, and the 27th round by Minnesota in 2009. So ended up choosing baseball or football as well. Played baseball in college at Minnesota along with football, but also had a pretty solid career when it came to being a wide receiver in the NFL. Brandon Weeden was a 2nd-round pick by the New York Yankees back in 2002. He did spend 4 seasons in the minor leagues as a pitcher, playing in the farm system for the Yankees, Dodgers, and Royals. Ended up going over to football instead. And then we have some throwback guys. Dante Culpepper, he was a 26th-round pick outfielder for the Yankees out of high school in 95. John Elway, he was a big-time guy. He was drafted twice as an outfielder, 18th round by the Kansas City Royals in 1979, and then by the New York Yankees in 1981. Deion Sanders we remember as a big guy. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys. Bo Jackson's obviously big-time career. Even Dan Marino, he was a 4th-round pick out of high school to be a pitcher for the Kansas City Royals. But all these guys ultimately opting to go with football instead. It just makes you wonder what if. I mean, some of these guys, what they could have done. I mean, you even have some guys after football coming over. I mean, the Tim Tebow project that happened with the New York Mets. He's still trying to make it, playing with some minor league contracts with the Mets. He has some flashes, not doing amazing things. In 2018 at AA, he hit 273 with 6 homers. I mean, not awful. And then, like we said, Jeff Samardzija, I mean, made the big pick. You wonder what would have happened with him if he would have chose the NFL instead. He was considered to be a high-round ranking prospect in 2007. He was runner-up to Calvin Johnson in that season for being the top receiver, but he decided that, hey, baseball's going to be it for me, and power to him. It's a big, tough decision to make. So that's just some of the guys that I thought about in sports. I even thought about diving into hockey a little bit too, but I mean, there's definitely probably a lot of possibilities of some guys that would be good sticks at the MLB level, but I struggled to come up with some good guys. The NFL just seemed like the easy transition where there's just a lot of people you would know. So that's kind of my list of guys that I was curious about, who could dip over, who could jump from another professional sport and potentially be at least an exciting prospect when it comes to MLB, because there's plenty of these guys that were, wanted to be able to play both sports. They did it in college. Professional level might have been way too demanding, even though we've seen some do it, but still interesting nonetheless to think about. So that's going to be it for me today in this episode for the GSMC Baseball Podcast. I want to thank you again for listening. It would be great if you could leave a positive review, whether it be through any format that you listen to for the podcast. It greatly helps us out, gives us stuff to potentially talk about, just like that last segment. It's helpful and pushes us in a direction about stuff that you guys want to hear. So that's going to be it for me. I'm Collin Manley, going to be signing off here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Baseball Podcast. part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.